This video is part of a series that covers all the new features, evolutions, and fixes introduced in the successive service packs following the release of Automic Automation version 21. In this video, we describe those features for the service pack number shown in red. Some of the items listed are important changes that warrant further exploration. They may require user behavior changes, or they might represent some of the more arcane aspects of the technology, and so they're listed in red in the overview. As such, they'll have dedicated slides. Others are minor, and we list them for awareness. They will be listed in black and will not have dedicated content. All items are grouped together by components: Automic Automation, Kubernetes Edition, AWI, agents, and so forth. The following are the new features and improvements included in Service Pack 2104. Let's start with Automic Automation. We cover the use of Microsoft's Azure Active Directory as a SAML provider. SSO and SAML have long been part of the Automic solution. With 2104, the focus is on Azure specifically. We talk about the execution trigger key in UC system settings, which has been introduced as a result of the integration of Automic with AAI, which you may know as either Automation Analytics Intelligence or Automic Automation Intelligence, depending on the version. Finally, we'll discuss what happens when the JCP TLS certificate expiration date is less than 30 days away. The certificate validity check happens every day for security reasons, and AWI notifies you of this fact, along with a number of impacted JCPs and their names. There are other items which do not warrant dedicated content. We now support containerized agents. You may be surprised to see this topic included in regular Automic and not Kubernetes Edition, but it's intentional, since the Automic instance does not need to be AAKE. A containerized agent can connect to an on-premise or containerized AE. This is a major step in the support we provide for Kubernetes. We won't provide additional content on this, since the learning will be part of a larger program for version 24. We have the GSS_compatibility variable. Version 21 was the opportunity to upgrade a large cross-section of agents to TLS. This being said, some agents like ZOS or agents below version 21 are GSS, which means they do not use the TLS certificate and instead rely on the TLS gateway to connect to the JCP. These agents use keys, and high entropy is recommended as low is less secure. Automic Automation has settings dedicated to advanced security stored in UCAS settings. A variable, GSS compatibility, has been added. By default, it's set to yes, meaning any agent, irrespective of entropy, will be able to connect. If you set this variable to no, only agents with high entropy keys will be able to connect. Over the past few years, vulnerabilities resulting from TLS renegotiation initiated by the clients have become an area of concern in the IT landscape. The client establishes a connection with the server over TLS, then changes the terms of the handshake. We took the necessary steps to be ahead of the curve and ended the possibility of renegotiation. You can now use older and non-TLS Java APIs with version 2104 of the automation engine. Some telemetry improvements have been made. Next, we move on to the Kubernetes Edition. We include new configuration options to remediate AWI connection challenges. If this is something you'd like to know more about, check AWI-properties in the AWI config map. AWI logs have been cleaned up, and you can add a logo to the web interface. If you make changes to the values.yaml file for any reason, you'll need to restart Helm to apply those changes. With 2104, the AE and AWI pods will restart automatically, which was not the case before now. Finally, we'll look at AWI. All changes are transparent and require no user behavior adjustments. We no longer store login information in the login cookie. Instead, we store in the browser's local storage object so as to avoid potential security vulnerabilities. The HTML and YouTube dashboard widgets have been moved to a different plugin called Auto Install. If you're concerned about security problems associated with these widgets, you can uninstall them. Finally, we've added two secure content policy parameters to the AWI configuration.properties file. CSP.enabled if you want to enable or disable CSP, and CSP.whitelists. They work together to prevent cross-reference items in AWI, say YouTube for example. In configuration properties, you enable CSP, and then CSP.whitelist equal whatever URL should be permitted in AWI, say the YouTube URL. This is covered more comprehensively in another module in this series on header security, and so we've left it out. This slide is relevant for single sign-on administrators. Automic automation has long supported SSO, and Security Assertion Markup Language, or SAML, is one of the accepted protocols. Instead of relying on a user ID and password stored in the AE database, users can rely on an additional drop-down menu in the AWI interface which lists SAML. The user selects the option and is redirected to an external authentication service provider to log in. SAML is XML-based. Setting up SAML is not in the scope of this learning module since the feature has existed going back many releases. However, we've added Microsoft Azure Active Directory as one of the supported service providers. To enable SAML-based SSO as opposed to, say, Kerberos, we use two variables in the client0 div variables folder. UC System Settings has a key called SAML, which you set to yes, which enables two keys in the other variable, UC SAML Settings. These keys, *config and *sp, contain all the relevant information to configure the SAML identity provider. *sp contains the entity description tags, basically the provider URI, HTTP post, and HTTP redirect bindings. *config contains configuration settings. The service pack portion of this feature is Microsoft Azure Active Directory, which now qualifies as one of those identity providers. The information relating to the Azure AD would be stored in *sp, but the *config value is particularly important. You should set the disable requested authorization context to true, since requested authorization context should not be included in the authorization request per Microsoft's requirements. It simply won't work. This slide is relevant to administrators of the Automic and AI integration. Automation Analytics Intelligence is a dashboarding tool which provides powerful supervision, analytical, and forecasting capabilities. It integrates seamlessly with the majority of IT automation solutions, including Automic. The integration relies on a technical component called the Connector Framework, which makes it possible for AI to extract scheduling data from the AE database to build its own data. In order to enable communication between Automic and the framework, a UC System Settings key execution trigger needs to be enabled. This does not require restart. This slide is relevant to security administrators. Users are notified via standard AWI notifications that a certificate is about to expire. This has been the case since TLS was introduced as a requirement for the new JCP to start. The JCP certificate is stored on the AE host. Its location is referenced in ucsrv.ini with the key store, password, and the alias. When the certificate is within a month of expiration, users are notified in AWI. There have been small alterations with 2104. That verification now happens on a daily basis instead of weekly. If the certificate expires, JCP won't start, AWI and agents can no longer connect, and so administrators will want to stay on top of this. Irrespective of the situation, the date of expiration is always written to the JCP log. Also, notifications now include the names of the JCPs. This is a new feature of the service pack. Keep in mind that Automic instances installed with a one installer wizard contain a JCP certificate that is valid for a year only. The one installer is convenient for anyone providing support services or for testing. During the installation with the one installer, you do not have the option of extending the validity date, and so you'll want to stay on top of this as well if you rely extensively on the one installer.